What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Soul Hoops podcast. My name is Jeffrey, and I'm here with Ryan and Mattias. How you two doing today?
And I'm doing pretty good. I just got my ass kicked and sorry. So little salty about that heading into today's pod, but other than that, I'm feeling good. I'm good.
Serious game.
It is
Very serious.
Very serious game.
How are you doing today, Mattias?
I'm just doing good. I was out helping my grandma again, but
another day's labor. Hardworking man over here.
Yeah, Jeff, what about you? We forgot to ask you last time.
Yeah, I've been good, just doing my thing. Got a little bit of housework done today. Work, same old. All right, well, let's get right into it. Let's go through our agenda really quick for the day. We got a few quick topics to talk about, and then we'll be getting into our main bulk of the episode, which will be ranking the top 10 shooting guards in the NBA per our own criteria. And the first thing we're going to be talking about today is some free agency. So Ayo Dosunmu was the first kind of stone that fell this week. Came back to the Bulls on a relatively small contract. Came back for, I believe it was a 3-year contract. And they'll be bringing back their backup point guard, combo guard.
One of them,
because they already signed Kobe White. So I don't know if you guys have any thoughts about it. It's pretty insignificant in the whole realm of the NBA.
Yeah, I didn't have too many thoughts other than just, it was one of the only signings that kind of happened in like a long time. So might as well just talk about it. The Bulls now have like 5 point guards on the roster, not including Lonzo, right? So they've got Ayo, Dalen Terry, Javon Carter, who they signed, Kobe White, they re-signed this summer, and Alex Caruso. We got a lot of guards. I thought Ayo was a little bit disappointing in the second year, but the defense is there. We'll just have to see if the offense comes around.
Yeah.
I think his offense will come around too. I think his rookie year and even last year through his struggles, he showed a real natural feel. Like I know it was like sometimes it was tough, but I don't think he was like in distress out there at all times. I think he'll figure it out, but I also don't see him being a high ceiling. He's just a glue guy, and I don't think the contract was something like egregious either.
No, it's reasonable.
Yeah, awesome. I agree. I think he also has shown a little bit of ability to be a slasher, even if the shooting and self-creation game goes up, and he can always be he still has some ball handling skills and can play make at an okay level for a backup guard. So yeah, I liked it overall. I think it's also good, like, if you're going to bring him back, there's no reason to let him walk for nothing. So
yeah, I mean, he's not like a completely insignificant player. I mean, playing for the Bulls, like, it's, you aren't going to get a lot of eyes on you just because the team sucks. But and maybe he'll never be a starter in this league if everything works out. But I could see if he becomes like a pretty decent offensive player, the defense stays the same. If he found his way onto a championship contending team, I feel like he can make a big impact off the bench potentially.
Yeah, I agree.
100%.
Yeah. All right, and then the big news of this week for free agency was Jaylen Brown signing his Supermax extension, $307 million guaranteed, fully guaranteed. He got a trade kicker and all that, so that's what they were hung up on, I guess, in the negotiation process. He is now holds the largest contract in the NBA history, previously held by Bradley Beal, which was signed last year, I think. So I don't know. You guys got any thoughts about Jaylen Brown's contract?
Yeah, well, it's a lot of money.
That it is.
$307 million with a trade kicker, so that could even go up. And there's no team options, player options, anything. It's it's 5 years guaranteed. So yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of people have been quick online to say the contract is an overpay and how Jaylen Brown doesn't deserve it, and it is an overpay. That's a lot of money for Jaylen Brown, but also, like, are you gonna let him walk? No, you aren't gonna do that. I don't think there was a scenario where the Celtics could be like, actually, instead of getting you the max, can we negotiate a little bit? I just don't think that was going to happen. Because Jaylen Brown, he's been part of this team for 7 years now. He makes up the pairing of the star duo of him and Jason Tatum. Jaylen Brown had a rough playoffs last year. But I mean, it's Jaylen Brown at the end of the day. He's still super, super good. Yeah, just a lot of money. And I mean, we'll have to see how that plays out.
No, I agree with you, Ryan. People seem to forget because it's just like the recency of his struggles that he is super, super good. There's a reason he was an All NBA performer. Like,
Yeah,
he earned the contract. The Celtics draft and build a team to pay these guys. Like, they know that they're gonna have to pay him the supermax as soon as they made the All NBA team. This was on the table. They knew that. That's why you do that. And you have Jason Tatum. You surround him with as many All NBA and All Star guys as possible if you can do it. And if you have the money, you do it. And I think people just kind of forget that sometimes you got to slightly overpay, but the contracts all catch up. In 3 years, at the end of this contract, I don't think it's going to be egregious or anything.
And also, he was just the best player on the Celtics, like in the finals, right? In my opinion, he outperformed Jason Tatum in that finals. So, it's the recency bias with last year and kind of how he played against the Heat with his dribbling and all that. Yeah, like I definitely get why people are a little bit surprised, or a lot of it surprised in a lot of ways. But yeah, I mean, let's not let that cloud how he's viewed.
Yeah, I think when you go into a negotiation process as a team and a player, you really don't have any choice. I mean, at the end of the day, it's you either you pay him or you let him walk, because he doesn't want he wants his max, and he's going to get it either way. Yeah. There will be a very cap open team that is looking for a star of that caliber and would do a sign and trade or something to acquire or pay him his money. So if you don't pay him his money and you don't meet his contract demands, you lose an All NBA performer for nothing. Obviously it isn't a slight overpay, because that's a supermax contract that's usually reserved for top level players, like top 5 to 10 players. But don't get it twisted. He did everything to earn that contract and the ability to sign that contract. So I have no problem with them paying him 300, like the full 300. I am very intrigued though that there was no sort of options on it, because even most players take player options or of some sort on those contracts. So if they want to extend, they can decline and get more money at one point. But maybe he's just said, better for me just to have that fully guaranteed all the way through. So I really had no problem with it. I think you kind of have to do it. Otherwise you're kind of screwed from there on. Cause you're not just pulling a 26 per game, score out of nowhere.
I don't know.
So I think it's so good, and it also locks them up for the future, which they'll then lock up JT, and they extended Kristaps, so they have these guys locked under contract for a few years, and they acquired a lot of second round picks to move salary off and bring in younger guys, second round guys to fill out the roster in the future. So
the trade kicker is pretty interesting, I think. If Jaylen Brown's camp were able to leverage that, I think that's a big win for them, because I still think if you ask a lot of people who have, like, whether sources in the league or other GMs around the league, I think a lot of them would still say that, this pairing between Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, I don't know if it's going to be together for the rest of this 5 years. Like, I still think there's some smoke with Jaylen Brown's future with this team, whether he likes playing in Boston, whether his skill sets with Jason Tatum's are a bit redundant on this team. There's a lot of smoke that have been there about Jaylen Brown. And I think a lot of that is because of the, upcoming extension, whether Jaylen Brown wants to sign the extension or not. Well, he did, but even then, even though he did, I still think there is a likely scenario where, year 3, year 4, year 5 of this contract, Jaylen Brown could find himself on a new team. And if so, that trade kicker really boosts his salary, because if you're set to make 75-ish million kind of around the end of your contract, which is crazy to begin with, if you add like a 10%, 15% trade kicker on top of that, you're looking at like $80 million the last few years of this contract. That's a lot.
Yeah, it is pretty crazy. And trade kickers can be unique, because depending on how the contract terms, which we obviously as fans do not have, trade kickers can sometimes the salary of the trade kicker will be required to be taken on by the team that he's being traded from, not the team that he's being traded to. For example, Bradley Beal's contract if his trade kicker was not actually initiated in the trade because it goes over the max contract allowable salary.
Okay.
So the team had to just take on that as a loss, which is a little bit of a little fun fact. So depending if he were to be traded next year, the trade kicker would have no effect. So it's more for down the line protection for about 4 to 5 years when the cap is a lot higher.
Mm-hmm.
And when the salary is when the max allowable salary is higher. So
Okay.
So that's one thing about the trade kicker that's a little unique,
Interesting.
Which can be a protection for a player that says, hey, if you're going to trade me in 5 years, then you're going to have to pay me an extra 10% of my salary, and 10% of seven, that's an extra 7 to 10 million based on the cap and all that stuff. So it should be interesting.
Yeah, I mean that means for Boston that they could be potentially paying all of that money down the road.
Yeah, which in my opinion, I don't think they'll end up trading him. Obviously, I think this shows that they're kind of committed to it, but Boston's front office has shown that they are willing to part with stars that they've paid, not paid, or no matter what, if the right packages come available for real superstar players. So you never know.
You never know if Jaylen Brown or someone's gonna get upset. Like I don't want to. Like it sounds stupid, but at this point, it's just like people will ask out.
Yeah, you never know. You literally never know. So. Yeah. One other thing that I think it was kind of interesting, that was just funny. Speaking of trades, when Bradley Beal's comments, I don't know if you guys saw that. He said about Phoenix. He said when he found out that Phoenix was a trade destination that was interested, he said, "How is that even possible? They're trading D-Book for me." And everyone was like, "Man, they traded D-Book for you, bro."
Why they trading Book?
Oh yeah, he said, "Why they traded Book for me?"
Yeah, I like Bradley Beal a lot, but I hate to tell good people bad news. And I'm sorry, Bradley Beal, but that's not going to happen.
You are not at that. Yeah, I thought it was funny too because I was thinking in my head, I'm like, he had a no trade clause. He has to approve the package.
Yeah.
Before he could get traded. So
he's acting surprised.
Oh man.
So he just lied, probably.
Yeah. You guys saw that when Jaylen Brown got his extension, Grant Williams and Robert Williams
FaceTimed him, but he didn't.
FaceTimed him. Oh, so he's moving different now. They switched up on him.
Love it.
That's hilarious. I did want to highlight one thing that I thought was really awesome that Jaylen Brown spoke about. He did not have his press conference for his extension signing at the Celtics facility. He had it at a community center that he helps fund, and he spoke about how one of his main goals with getting this extension is because he said that nobody needs that amount of money, and he said that he is committed to investing into the Boston community's low-income areas, and trying to invest and build up, minority-owned businesses and small businesses that have been failing in the communities. I think his exact quote was that he wants to build Black Wall Street all over again, but in the surrounding Boston areas, which I thought was awesome. Shout out to you, Jaylen Brown. That's super, super dope. I love when players really get involved in the communities around them. So really, really happy about that.
Yeah, that's great for Boston. I mean, Marcus Smart was also known for doing a lot of that within his community. And now that he's not in Boston anymore, it's cool to see other players kind of stepping up a little bit and taking on those responsibilities. And yeah, for years now, like everything that you hear about Jaylen Brown, his character, his personality is just like, there's nothing but good things you hear about him. And I also saw that tweet that got sent out about where he's holding his press conference. And yeah, Jaylen Brown, he seems like a great dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then we can get into our next piece here. So we'll talk about the FIBA Select team a little bit. The full roster got released for the rest of the team for FIBA that's going to be traveling and doing, scrimmages and teamwork with them. We spoke briefly about it with a few of the younger names a few episodes ago, but Ryan has our full finalized list, so he can give us that.
Yeah, so the finalists that came out, we've got Cade Cunningham from the Pistons. We've got Jalen Duren from the Pistons. Langston Galloway, who's a free agent. Jalen Green from the Rockets. Quentin Grimes from the Knicks. We've got Chet Holmgren from the Thunder. John Jenkins from the G League Ignite. Herb Jones from the Pelicans. Eric Micah from the G League Ignite. Trey Murphy from the Pelicans. Keegan Murray from the Kings,
Ooh.
Peyton Pritchard from the Celtics, Naz Reid from the Timberwolves, and Jalen Williams from the Thunder. And also, Orlando Magic coach Mosley is the coach for the Select team.
Nice. I love it. I love all those names. Langston Galloway, very random name that he's in there. I also remember randomly in my head, Langston Galloway was one of the first players to have a shoe collab with one of those Chinese brands. So, or one of those overseas brands. I forgot which one it was, but I remember him having those. Yeah, I like a lot of those names. Two biggest ones for me, Trey Murphy and Herb Jones. I'm a huge fan of those dudes. Herb Jones is awesome. He's super, super sick basketball player.
He's great. He's great.
And Trey Murphy's a sick basketball player too. He's like a hyper efficient 3-point shooter, volume 3-point shooter.
I love Trey Murphy's game.
I love Trey Murphy's game. I love him. He's going to be very good for a very long time. So he has that type of game that can go on forever, even if he doesn't become a star. So those are the two names for me that really stuck out that I'm really, really happy that are there. Yeah, so I don't know if you guys have any guys that you're big fans of. I'm guessing Ryan has his.
Yeah, obviously Naz Reid being on the team is that was quite a pleasure to see. Yeah, I think it's also Naz Reid. I'm just going to talk about him for a tiny bit. To be an undrafted guy in 2019, to working his way up through the G League, and then on the Timberwolves roster, to slowly kind of inching up the rotation, and then when Cat got injured early this year, Naz Reid steps in. His development story is it's remarkable. You look at his growth year to year, and his story of a high school phenom who went to LSU, wasn't great there, got undrafted, and now the FIBA Select team, it's usually reserved for younger players who are still kind of developing their games, but that's for Naz Reid to be on that Select team, I think that's a huge nod. I'm super, super happy to see Timberwolves represented. Obviously, that's my favorite team in the USA FIBA. We've got Anthony Edwards on the main squad, and now Naz Reid in the Select team. Yeah, I think it's great for sure.
Yeah,
I think an underrated little name in there was actually Quentin Grimes. He's like a name that stuck out immediately because all these guys are the typical young. Like you were saying, Ryan, it's like you see a lot of these young guys. And even in my opinion, Naz Reid, he's a very popular young guy at this point where he's kind of broken on the scene as people see him as a good development piece. And I don't know, Grimes stuck out. And I really like Grimes. So I want to see if he brings anything or can help take the Knicks past the 6th seed where they've been stuck.
I love Quentin Grimes' game too. Shout out Quentin Grimes. Super underrated player. He was one of the best on-ball defenders in the NBA, as well as one of the best catch and shoot guys in the NBA last year. I think specifically from the corner. So it was awesome. He can play the 1, he can play the 2. He'll guard any guard. He's willing to do the dirty work. He'll guard forwards too if you need him to. He's definitely
his defense is amazing.
That's what I love about him. He just plays tough. I remember in the playoffs, there's this one play that sticks out to me where Quentin Grimes on basically one leg, I know what you're talking about. That stop on Jimmy Butler when he just shut him down with one leg. He dives after the ball. Yeah, that moment always sticks out to me.
He twisted his ankle and he got up and he limped down and he still got in his stance and he dove for a rip up and he tapped it out.
Yeah. He's completely poked it from Jimmy Butler. Yeah.
Awesome. Quentin Grimes is an awesome player. And it's interesting too, with overall with the Knicks, they have a lot of young guards right now that are really, really ascending. So with it Quickly and Grimes and Jaylen Brunson's a little bit older, but he's obviously coming onto his own last year. So lots of excitement down there. And I think the Knicks will be going star hunting soon, as soon as one comes available, and that'll be a nasty team after that. So shout out the Knicks. All right. Do you guys got anything else about the FIBA team that you wanted to talk about?
I think we kind of touched on it last time a little bit, just kind of the purpose of the Select team and kind of how that benefits players. But now that we see the whole list, it makes me even more excited to see how each of these players can take another step in their game. Keegan Murray too. I think Keegan Murray could definitely benefit from this. I think, if we see Keegan Murray next year coming with an extra step of off the dribble creation, kind of getting downhill a little bit more, maybe some real slashing flashes. Yeah. I think that'd be pretty cool to see. It could help the Kings out a lot, and him being on the select team is definitely good for Kings fans and just good for his development overall. And Trey Murphy, like we talked about, Trey Murphy, if you hear from people within the Pelicans organization how they feel about Trey Murphy, they all think he can be a star, not just a star in his role, but like an actual star. Larry Nance, he really can be. Larry Nance was just on Zach Lowe's podcast, and he raves about the guy for like 5 whole minutes, just saying how much of a star he could be. Trey Murphy, like that combination of elite 3-point shooting and like actually elite with the hyper athleticism and the way he gets downhill, and he's also got so much defensive potential. I see him in a similar boat as Jaden McDaniels a little bit. Maybe not as good right now, but I think Trey Murphy and Jaden McDaniels are 2 guys that are on that trajectory of players who kind of start out as catch and shoot specialists, kind of more off-ball guys. But it wouldn't surprise me that if over time, if their roles in the offense, if they're increased, I think they could really shine and show a lot of things.
Yeah.
Similar to Mikal Bridges these last year.
For sure.
Yeah. It's funny you point out Mikal, because Mikal was speaking about that on he recently went on Podcast P. I don't know if you guys watched that episode.
I saw a little bit of it.
Yeah, he spoke to that. He said there's players all over the league that if you really watch, that they have the ability to take that next step as soon as they're given the opportunity to. And he spoke specifically to his time last year in Phoenix during the first half of the season when a lot of the Suns players were injured. There's a point in time where Book, CP, Ayton were all injured, and it was just him and Cam Johnson out there. And Cam Johnson was even hurt for some time before he came back because he had a knee injury. And it was just him out there, and he was, I got to work on my game and learn how to win with an expanded role, and that really helped me when I went to Brooklyn. So, and I think you'll see that next year. Hopefully the Pelicans let Trey Murphy spread his wings. I very much hope that the Minnesota Timberwolves let Jaden McDaniels do his thing as well. Yeah. It's why I've spoken about it. I'm a huge fan of Cat. But unfortunately, with the amount of assets that the Timberwolves had to give up for Rudy Gobert, if they were to move one of those centers and go to a more traditional lineup, he would probably be the one out. And also because he's worth more on the trade market. So, and I would love Jaden McDaniels as a full-time just for being able to be the second scoring option on that team. So, yeah, but you never know. I think. I agree. I think this would be a great opportunity for all those guys to develop their game a little bit. And Keegan Murray, I agree. If they let Keegan Murray next year, I'm very hopeful about the Kings letting Keegan Murray, do some more ball handling responsibilities. Hope he runs with the bench unit more as an actual ball handler and working kind of a Chris Middleton type of role with the other guys on the bench. That'd be awesome. And I think that could unlock a lot for an offense it would advance an offense that was already the best offense, not in just the NBA last year, but in NBA history statistically, which not a lot of people know about. So Keegan Murray is the key to unlocking and even the next step for them. So
he's got a lot more to his game than we saw last year.
Yeah.
A lot more.
Yes.
He just has such a good natural feel. I feel like his game looks simple, but like he's still so elite. He gets to his spots and he always has a step on somebody.
Yeah, he said it when he got drafted, and it's very true. He reminds me of a bigger Chris Middleton. Like it doesn't look very flashy, but it just everything he does will just works. And he's not hyper athletic, so his game just is it's just all pure hoops. Mm-hmm. All right, yeah. So the next thing. So it was reported this week that Donovan Mitchell it's kind of rumored around the league that Donovan Mitchell is not committed to signing with the Cavaliers long-term for an extension next summer, which is interesting because they just gave up a lot of assets to get him. And it's pretty much a rumor that he wants to go to the Knicks because that's where he's from. And and last year he wanted to go to the Knicks as well, and they didn't trade him there. So I don't know if you guys got any thoughts about that.
My first thought is like, I don't believe it.
Mm-hmm.
I just feel like he's in such a good position in Cleveland.
Yeah.
Like, why try to force yourself a trade now? Like, at least give it a little bit. You have Evan Mobley, who a lot of people see as a generational defender, or even some people see as a generational power forward potentially.
Yeah.
And you have Darius Garland, who's already a very, very good point guard. You're set up, and they're both on contract for long term now, right?
Yeah, Darius is an extension. Evan Mobley still on his rookie deal. Jared Allen still has a few years left on his contract, but I think
I forgot about Jared Allen.
Yeah, but it's been rumored they've been trying to move him. They just signed a bunch of guys to some contracts. They just drafted Amani, but yeah. So the only guy that's not locked up for the next few years is Donovan. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I don't believe it too much. If Donovan was willing to sign an extension in Utah fully, I think he'll be fine playing in a Cavs uni. So
yeah, I think with Don, I think what that report from Tim Bontemps it was, but I think what he was trying to get at there was a little bit less of Donovan Mitchell is currently unhappy and he wants to go to New York right now. I think it's more he was more looking forward a little bit, saying, there's no fire right now, but I think maybe in a few years when it's time for Donovan Mitchell to really commit to a team, and he's still with the Cavs, I think it's worth being a little bit maybe I don't know how to say this. Maybe a little bit worried with what Donovan Mitchell is thinking about the Cavs long term, because it's no secret that he wants to play for the Knicks, or that he would really be open to the idea of playing for the Knicks. I mean, he wanted to last year. We all knew it. Gets traded to not Utah. He was traded from Utah. He gets traded to the Cavs. I think it kind of threw everyone a little bit off guard. I mean, I certainly was not expecting the Cavs to be one of those teams to go after Donovan Mitchell, and it's likely that Donovan Mitchell was also a little bit surprised by that too. So it wouldn't really surprise me if, maybe a few years down the line, if this Cavs thing doesn't work out too well. Let's say this Cavs team never really makes out the second rounds, and this is kind of repeatedly a good team but not great. Let's say they kind of ceiling out.
Yeah.
Donovan Mitchell could definitely be like, I don't really want to sign my extension. I might want to force my way out. I just want to be in a new situation.
Yeah.
No, that's fair.
You know what this team kind of would remind me of? If they don't, they're really banking on the development of Evan Mobley, obviously, which they should be. He's top 3 in DPOY this year. He's already very good. He has a very limited offensive game, but it's effective when he's aggressive, and he can still develop from there. But this team kind of would remind me of those grit and grind early Memphis teams, where it's like, unless the team fully develops to its, the one player that they're banking on to develop into the superstar that they're hoping, they're really not going to be able to ever get past that little barrier, because they're never going to have like a top 5 to 10 player. So
no. And I think them training for Donovan in a way actually kind of capped them a little bit. And it's hard because it's hard to guarantee any of those draft picks ever become a Donovan Mitchell. So it's hard to say they made the wrong decision. But you just, when you go, because they were like a play-in team before him, correct? Still lottery
so
team.
they were the 6th seed, and then Jared Allen got hurt, and Darius Garland got hurt, and they dropped down to 7. And then Darius Garland came back 2 years ago at the end of the year, tried to pull him out of the play-in, but they couldn't make it out. And then Jared Allen did not play at all.
They lost to the Hawks.
They lost to the Hawks. They dropped fully out of the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But I feel like they kind of jumped and pushed themselves a little too fast with Donovan, instead of maybe getting another lottery talent or 2 lottery talent to refine their roster.
Yeah, we see that a lot of times with teams who are rebuilding, is that a team starts their rebuilds and it's going well, and then they make a bit of a breakthrough, right? Maybe they get one of those play-in spots, maybe they have a playoff berth, whatever. And then all of a sudden, they see that a big name is on the market, and they got to jump at it, right? Because it's like, we can't pass this up. We got to do it because it'll guarantee we're good. But oftentimes, taking that shortcut can actually set a team back and can actually not really work out for them down the line. It's not the exact same, but I think about my Timberwolves like always back in the summer of 2017 when we traded for Jimmy Butler, right? The team was on this trajectory that they weren't good right then, but they were probably going to be good in a few years and get better and better if they kept that team of Cat, Wiggins, Zach LaVine, Tyus Jones, all those guys, and other picks, right? But by trading for Jimmy Butler, then it effectively took a shortcut. Taking a shortcut in terms of it's going to guarantee they're good right now, but maybe it caps their ceiling a little bit too early and a little bit too low compared to what it could be later in the line. And I think that I'm not saying this is necessarily the case, because I think there's a lot of stuff with that Timberwolves team that made it not work out, and not just like Jimmy Butler. I don't know, whatever. Yeah. But
a lot of off-court issues.
Yeah, pivoting back to Cavs, I think that there is a chance that trading for Donovan Mitchell when they did could potentially bottleneck them in the future as to what they could be, or as to what they could have been if they had kept the core of Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, Jarrett Allen, and all their picks.
Agreed. And I also think they might have kept Evan Mobley a bit. And I know he's not a great offensive player, as you said earlier, Geoff, but sometimes when they're young and developing, like, these players just kind of need to be given the ball.
Yeah, I would.
And when a high volume scorer like Donovan is just taking the ball away from Evan Mobley's on ball creation.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting if they do end up moving Jarrett Allen. I think you could see, obviously, Evan Mobley moving down to the 5, and I think that would really open up his offensive game, where he wouldn't need to develop too much offensive game to still be very effective. Because he's athletic, obviously, he's one of the best switch defenders in the NBA. He's one of the best switch defenders in the NBA, and he's a very, very good help side defender, and he's a very good one-on-one defender as well. So if he was able to play 5, he would really unlock his full defensive potential, which is already crazy, and as it is, without even having full reign. And you would be able to allow him to play a much simpler offensive role with Darius Garland being able to be a lob threat, being a roller. He shows a little bit of a mid-range talent, and his floater game is okay. You could develop that a little bit for some of that dump-off work, which then you also need Darius Garland's offensive game to develop, which is kind of crazy to say because he is a very, very, very good offensive player. But he does have struggles getting to the rim because of his smaller frame, and he does have troubles finishing through contact. So, if he puts on a little bit more weight and he can work through contact a little bit better, and his jump shot can stay how it is right now, which also can be a little bit spotty, but his passing is high level. But yeah, I really hope that they can, make the decisions right. It'd be interesting. And one of the interesting thing about the Cavs is the year that they were really, really bad. So Darius Garland's rookie year, they fell in the draft from the number 1 or 2 odds to 5. Because the Timberwolves jumped up, the Warriors jumped up.
That's right.
And Charlotte jumped up. All 3 teams that were in the bottom, they got the top 3 picks of the Anthony Edwards, LaMelo, and James Wiseman. They fell. So they all jumped up. So they did not get their top 3 pick that they were supposed to get, which, it was interesting. But
it led to them getting Isaac Okoro.
Yeah, and Isaac Okoro, if he could develop a little bit more, that could be a really good piece for them. I think they just really need to keep developing the guys that they have. And I think the problem is that the offensive development is the number one thing for their team. And they traded for a guy that's very offensive heavy and takes a high usage rate. So obviously they're still developing together and they still can. but it's very hard. And I think that they have to keep doing what they're doing to be able to have a chance.
Yeah.
I think like the first step we'll see, like if they want to win with this Donovan Mitchell group, like if their thought process is title contention, if Donovan Mitchell actually, or they put pressure on the team that we're gonna blow it up at some point, or someone comes to them and it's like, I want to leave, Jarrett Allen will be the first domino to fall. Like, I'm not gonna really be worried until we see like actual pressure on other fringe trades of them trying to be like, hey, stay.
Yeah.
And then
I agree.
once we see those, I think then maybe we worry about Mitchell or Garland or someone else maybe.
Yeah, Jarrett Allen is an interesting piece in this all too, because like kind of what you said, Geoff. I think the ultimate goal is to eventually move Evan Mobley to the 5. Because he's got the size to play 5, he's got the versatility on offense, but the reason that they haven't traded Jarrett Allen yet, and the reason they don't want to move Evan Mobley to the 5 is just because I don't think he's physically ready to play the 5. I mean, we saw in the New York series that both Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley were getting absolutely bullied on the boards by Julius Randle and Mitchell
Robinson. Lights were too bright, baby.
The lights were too bright. Whoa. they got out hustled out there. Evan Mobley, he just wasn't big enough to keep up with.
Yeah, he's not a very strong rebounder. No. Which would worry me if he moved to the 5. But I think you could pair him with another guy in the front court who's a little bit stronger of a rebounder. And I think you could have some positives there.
You definitely could, but I think that's why the Cavs are a little bit apprehensive to move Evan Mobley to the 5 just yet. And Jarrett Allen, that's kind of why his future with the team is probably the most uncertain in the short term, just because they don't really need him next to Evan Mobley, but they kind of need him in the present. And he's a good guy and good for the locker room, according to all sources. So yeah, Cavaliers super interesting because they're going to be good, but we need to see what their ceiling is, and a lot of the margin moves with them really need to hit if they need to make if they want to make the most out of this Mitchell trade. That's when you start, like, when you have a superstar on your team and you want to go all in, push your chips all in. The margin moves are the moves that you need to hit on. Even the 1% moves.
And you have to get lucky too. Like,
you do have to get a little bit
lucky. You have to get lucky. So I'm gonna use the Bucks for example because it was perfect. We took the gamble on Bobby Portis in 2021. It completely hit.
Oh yeah.
We took the gamble on Pat Connaughton in 2020. Completely hit. All of these pieces, these marginal moves that people don't really look at, they develop into good players. That's what has to work. And I'm actually like some of those moves that the Cavs made this year, or getting George Niang, which isn't the best player, but he can have his moments. He can be a role player that can do something for you. Getting Max Strus to come off the bench is also awesome. That's a guy that can, he can hit some shots. He can play some defense. He can, be crash the boards. He can do those little things. So you just have to hope that those moves hit when you make them, and then your ceiling can go higher. The one thing I would worry about with them is, even though they are going to have a really good team, are they better than a lot of the teams like in the East? Like, I think their absolute ceiling right now would probably be the 4th best team. Like,
I agree.
Yeah.
Like, are they better?
I don't see a way where they step into that upper tier of
tier 1. Like, are they better than? Is there any room? Is there any way that they're better than Boston?
No.
Is there any way that they're better than Milwaukee?
No.
Is there? There's probably a chance that they could be better than Philly if Harden's moved. And
we can see what Philly looks like. But
even then, they have Joel Embiid. Like, they're going to be a good regular season team.
It's true.
So I don't know. It'll be an interesting team to watch over the next year or two.
Yep.
All right. Well, I believe that's all we got to go over for our final little stuff. Then we could get into the big bulk of the episode, which is ranking our shooting guard lists. So we have all assembled a list of our top 10 shooting guards in the NBA. We have not conferred any of our information before this, so none of us know where anyone else is. And the shooting guards that we have on our list identified are from Basketball Reference. So that is where we got our information from. Does either of you guys want to go first? Otherwise, I can start it off.
I can go first if you guys don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, it's gonna be the same format as the last video, our point guards ranking video. You guys should check that out if you guys haven't already.
Yes, sir.
And we're gonna start with 3 honorable mentions each. These are guys that just missed the cut. I have Derek White, Tyler Hero, and Tyrese Maxey as my 3 cuts.
All right. My honorable mentions were Tyrese Maxey, Derek White, and Jalen Williams.
I had Tyler Hero, Tyrese Maxey, and Jalen Green.
Jalen Green was just outside of that 15-ish, probably. He'd probably be like my 14th.
I honestly feel like after the top 9 of this list, it's just like
it's like the great. It's like
yeah.
It's like the guys that's like it's pretty much equal in what they do, and really whatever like you prefer your player to do for you is like whatever you'd value.
Yeah.
Which it's like any of these guys could be arguing for each other based on what team they're on. I really think it would be like a situation based thing. All right, well then Ryan, you get to start with the number 10.
Number 10, I have Anthony Simons.
All right.
I just thought it felt right to include Anthony Simons on this list. I think he's one of the most underrated players in the entire NBA. Mattias is smiling because he knows what's up. He knows what's up. Yeah. Anthony Simons
fan club.
Playing next to Damian Lillard, it gets kind of easy to feel like Anthony Simons doesn't really get the same shine. He doesn't, he's playing secondary to one of the best players in the entire NBA, and they play similar positions. But Anthony Simons is really, really good. He's one of the best high volume, accurate pull-up 3-pointers in the NBA. And it's very, very good. I think that's ultimately why I gave him the edge over guys like Tyler Hero, Tyrese Maxey, Derek White, is because Anthony Simons, his shooting is just in a different stratosphere of player. Really, like not even just for his age or his position, but Anthony Simons, his 3-point shooting, especially off the dribble, is like, it doesn't rival Steph Curry, but if there's a tier right underneath, Anthony Simons belongs in that tier.
Agreed. And even catch and shoot, he struggled a bit more at catch and shoot this year, but over the last 3 years, his catch and shoot numbers are absolutely crazy. I also have Anthony at number 10.
Awesome.
I didn't go too home fan delusional, but I agree. He had something like 99th percentile in openness, or like something like that, or like I think technically like first in percentile openness. So like like least amount of open jump shots in the whole league, and he shot 39% or whatever from 3. And last year he was at a similar percentile, and he shot like 41 or 40. Like he shoots it, and he shoots it at like 8 a game. It's crazy.
Yeah, so his official stats for the year were 37.7% from 3 and 89% from the free throw line. But the 3 points, he was shooting 9 a game.
Oh, even more than I thought.
9 a game, which is crazy.
Yeah,
the only people that were at that level are like LaMelo is taking that amount, and like Steph Curry.
Yeah, and especially at the beginning of the season when the Blazers were still pretty competitive, Anthony Simons was especially good at the beginning. Like if you isolate the first half stats, especially, you look at that, it's way better than even the stats that you just named, Geoff.
Yeah. And one really, everyone always talks about his offensive ability, but his defense is not, like, he has improved so much as a defender. Like, he was a very good statistically a very good isolation defender last year with guards. And he's can do that at a high level, and he'll continue to do that. And I think his defense will only get better because his defensive numbers will even look better, because next year he's going to be playing next to Scoot, who is going to be a better defender than Dame is, just based off of athleticism and size. So
I agree.
My number 10 was Tyler Hero. I have Tyler Hero at number 10. Tyler Hero, I don't know, either of you guys, you had them both in honorable mentions, right? Yeah. So Tyler Hero, for me, I think he's one of the most undervalued players from the regular eye. he has to take on a very high self-creation workload because there's not really any traditional creator on that offense in Miami. Jimmy is not he can create his own shot. Don't get it. Well, obviously, but like his self-creation is a lot more slashing and mid-range and, foul percent. Like I think he's one of the highest percentage players in his total points coming from fouls.
Yeah.
Or from free throws. And like Tyler Hero is like the only player on that team that's trusted to be a primary ball handler, playmaker, and 3-point shooter. And like, he also is, he's not the greatest defender, but he's also a very good rebounder for the position. He averages like 5 rebounds a game. His playmaking could probably take another step, but they also run a very motion heavy offense. So you never really know what his playmaking could look like if he was given a primary playmaking role. So Tyler Hero is my 10. Anthony Simons was my number 9, actually. So I had him at 9. Oh. I think that Anthony is very, very good. I think
I agree with you.
Yeah, I think it's hard for him to. I think it's hard for him to crack into that next level. That's just right above him for right now because he's playing next to Dame and he still has some of the labels from his early career as being a bad defender and the inefficiency from his early career, but it's completely switched, and I think people just don't really realize that yet. So who do you guys have at number 9 then?
I have Desmond Bane.
I have DeJounte Murray.
Okay. I had Bane did not make my list. Right.
Really?
Now. Yes.
Oh.
Wow.
Is that on purpose or did you forget?
Oh, I meant to put him on honorable mentions. Just replace Jalen Williams or Desmond Bane with Jalen Williams on my honorable mentions. I meant to have him on here on the honorable mentions. I had to retype my list, so I must have forgot to put him back on there.
No, that's fair. I didn't have Halliburton on my list, so I can't.
Yeah, for me. So you both had Dame or Bane at 9.
Yeah, I had Desmond Bane at 8.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll talk about Desmond Bane then. I really like Desmond Bane, but his inconsistency with self-creation, I think, really limits his offensive game and the impact that he can have on an offense as a second option, as a second shot creating option, especially as a perimeter player. And he's also like he has the body type physically to be a strong defender, but his his wingspan is not very long. Obviously, that's like the meme with him. And so he's not that great of a, passing lane defender or help side guy. But I think if his offensive self-creation consistency can step up a little bit, I think I would probably have him over the next guy, the last 2 guys, or maybe 1 or 2 of them. But I just think that has been limited a lot so far, and he hasn't really shown the ability to stay consistent doing so.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair criticism of Bane, but I also think he is someone that benefits from Ja's creation. He's a perfect mold at the 2 next to Ja, but I don't think that's something you necessarily have to take away because he still creates an advantage for his team at a really, really high rate. And there's an NBA University stat here the other day I saw, and it showed like the team starting lineup breakdown of like advantages created on average or something like that. And Desmond Bane led the Grizzlies, so it's like he's still consistently like creating plays for them, and even if it's just reading closeouts or reading secondary reads, he's doing it at a very, very high level, which I think he deserves some credit for sure.
Yeah, with Desmond Bane for me, I think the lack of real like great self-creation from him doesn't really take much down from him as a player, in my opinion. I think with Desmond Bane, I'm thinking about a lot how he played his second year and also this season before his toe injury, because even though he played most of the season after his toe injury, the toe injury was still bothering him for like nearly all of that. And I definitely think that impacted his defense and self-creation. I mean, it happened. He did play those games, but I look at especially the first 11 games of the season when he was fully healthy, he shot 45% on three with 9 attempts per game, 91% from the free throw line, 46% from field goal, and averaged 25 points per game. I think that version of Desmond Bane is a lot more real than the version we saw kind of after his toe injury at the end of the season. And at the end of the season too, I think he started to pick up a lot of that early season play and performance. I think definitely with Desmond Bane, I think with these 25 games without Ja Morant to start next season, that's kind of where we're going to see Desmond Bane really shine as an on-ball creator. And if not, I think that's kind of where we have to mark his ceiling as a guy who's never really going to do that. But these the first 25 games of next year are really going to show a lot from Desmond Bane and really going to prove to us whether he really can or can't take on that higher on-ball creation role.
Yeah. And I don't think he needs to be like some crazy high usage rate player, but he needs to be able to show that he can be a secondary. He doesn't need to, but he's going to show if he is going to be a secondary or a third guy.
If he could do that, and I agree, like I really do think that he has the ability to be like have more self-creation, and I think the injury last year did limit him a little bit. But for me personally, like I really value like the consistent ability to take on a self-creation like workload, especially in a ball handling guard. And I think Desmond Bane being one of the best off-ball movers and best shooters, like he did shoot 40% from 3 last year, and on 7 attempts, which is still a lot. So, but I think if he can still consistently do that self-creation, like I just need to see it for more extended periods of time. Like I need to see a season where there's more of that 25 points per game self-creation. And it doesn't have to be 25 points per game. I just need to see the self-creation level.
Yeah.
If I can see more of that for, more portion of the season instead of 75% of the season being the stationary run around catch and shoot guy and 25% of the season being the self-creation guy, if those numbers can, start to even out or the self-creation could take over more of that, I think that would move him up drastically in my rankings. So I think he just needs to step up a little bit in that aspect.
Yeah. Mattias, who did you have at 9?
At 9, I had Bane.
Desmond Bane? Okay. Well,
yeah.
I'm going to touch on my 9 real quick. I had DeJounte Murray.
He was my number 8. He was my
number 8 as well.
Yeah, so we can all just talk about him right now while we're at it. What we saw from DeJounte Murray last year is definitely not who we know DeJounte Murray is. DeJounte Murray was coming into a new situation where he has to play a different position than he's ever played before in the shooting guard. I guess with such a ball-dominant guard like Trae Young, I think DeJounte Murray, he had a lot of growing pains kind of growing into that newer role. And also, I don't think Nate McMillan was really helping him unlock that role as a secondary ball handler either. But
definitely not.
Still, DeJounte Murray, I think, had a really good season for what he was put in, and also the defense is always going to be there with him. Maybe it's not quite exactly what it was the year prior or even like 2-3 years ago before his ACL injury, but DeJounte Murray's defense is still a strong part of that game. And we just saw with the season from the Spurs 2 seasons ago now, the season before last, that he was an all-star. I think averaging near a triple-double with 2 steals a game. I think that version of DeJounte Murray is a lot realer than the version that we saw with the Hawks under a strange coach and a new system. So, yeah, I think I don't want to say I'm particularly high in DeJounte Murray because I did have him a spot lower than you guys. But, yeah, DeJounte Murray is also kind of a player whose reputation and the way people have seen him has kind of gone a little bit out of sorts in this year, kind of alongside with Trae Young. So, yeah, I think DeJounte Murray definitely deserves to be on this list.
Yeah. His statistically wise, like the numbers wise, like he didn't have that much worse of a season than he did last year when he was an all-star. I mean, he still was averaging 25 and 6 with a steal and a half a game. Like those are still very good numbers. I just think like I said, like what I spoke with, like the inconsistencies in the shooting really was a problem for the whole Hawks team this year. I really think the offensive system that was being implemented by Nate McMillan was a clear issue. They fired Nate McMillan and it got better. Like
Better.
it
got
the
better right away.
Instantly. Yeah.
Right
yeah,
away.
the self-create, like DeJounte Murray, the way that DeJounte Murray and Trae Young can succeed together is by having a self-creation role for both of them. Obviously, you're going to want Trae Young to take 75% of that, or maybe 60% of that, whatever it is, and have DeJounte take up, the self-creation when Trae Young can turn into an off-ball player, which we've been saying his whole career, so hopefully he can do. But I think I trust Quinn Snyder to do that because he's done that in the past with Donovan Mitchell and, when Mike Conley was there for a brief time before he got fired and all that stuff. They had that role, that self-creation where the point guard was able, where the better creator was able to do what he needed to do, but then the other guy can still create for others, which I think is very important. So
yeah, Quinn Snyder really unlocked things with that team. Also, I will add that part of DeJounte Murray's slight struggles last year were also because of Trae Young. I think Trae Young does have to play his part in the dual self-creation also, but it's especially evident how much better the Hawks team and DeJounte Murray were when Quinn Snyder took over in the playoffs. In the playoffs, in 5 games against the Celtics, DeJounte Murray averaged 23 points per game, 2 steals, 7 assists, 7 rebounds, shot 100% from the free throw line, 38% from 3 off 7 attempts per game, which is very big for him, and then 45% from the field goal range, which are really good stats. I didn't realize that either until I was making this list, and I was like, wow, DeJounte Murray was like way better than I thought in the playoffs.
And that was his first round stats, you said?
First against the Celtics, yep.
He played a good series, and then he got really suspended for that one game for pushing a ref, which whatever. But
yeah, my thing is with DeJounte, I think it's just like you guys said, the fit. Nate had him. I feel like he took a lot of catch and shoot threes, which he's just statistically and just visually, you can tell he's not comfortable or really good at comparatively to the league or even his team. Like he shouldn't be taking those shots.
Yeah.
But I still do think that a majority of people, you touched on a little, Ryan, earlier, have kind of twisted who DeJounte Murray is. He is a great, great player. And I think hopefully Snyder can kind of unlock a good chemistry between him and Trae, or can figure out what to do with them, because DeJounte has talent and they're gonna waste it down in Atlanta if they can't figure out what to do with him.
Yeah. And he just got his extension. So hopefully that's a little bit of pressure off the team and him to succeed so early, because I think that was part of it too, with the rumblings of Trae possibly requesting a trade. That was a lot of the offseason during the season because of him and Nate McMillan getting into it a bunch. DeJounte needing the extension at the end of the year. There's a lot of injuries that were going on. Capella was in and out of the lineup. They have a lot of developmental guys, but they have such a good top team that they're still very competitive. So they're kind of a mini Cavs, honestly, like with how they're structured. Like Trae Young is their Donovan Mitchell, Darius Garland is the DeJounte Murray, where it's like sometimes they get in each other's way a little bit too much, and they just need the development of some other pieces to get better around the margins, and they can be a really good team. I like a lot of the pieces they have. Like, there's no reason that roster should be as bad as it was last year. Like, Bogey coming off the bench, DeAndre Hunter, like hopefully he could take a 3-point shooting step. That's like the number one thing for them. I really like Okongwu off the bench. Clint Capella's always been great. Jalen Johnson's going to be their starting for Adrian Griffin. Like they have good players, and they just need to all merge together. Like and I think that's why they hired Quinn Snyder, because he can merge those talents and,
that's the
lead them to the promised land, hopefully.
Yeah.
All right.
7 now, right?
Yeah. Number 7.
I have Mikal Bridges.
I also have Mikal Bridges.
Okay. I kind of thought this would happen because I feel like with Mikal, any lower would be too low, and any higher would be too high. 7, I feel like was just perfect for Mikal Bridges.
Agreed.
Yeah, I agree. Mikal was awesome last year. He was very, we spoke about earlier, like he took on like a lot of load when he was in Phoenix at the beginning of the year when they're dealing with a lot of injuries, both defensively and offensively. And he kind of kept them somewhat steady. And then when those guys came back, he went right back to being very aggressive yet efficient and doing his, normal duties. And then he got traded and it all went crazy from there. I mean, it was scoring outburst after scoring outburst, playmaking started taking a jump. The defense was still there. He was still locking. It was just awesome. And he's a great, I love Mikal's as a personality. He's awesome.
He's awesome.
Yeah, I love Mikal. Someone that's just like, you cannot root for him at this point. Like, you just want to see him succeed. But with him, what stood out in Brooklyn was his mid-range creation.
It was so good. Yeah.
I really don't know if there's many other people in the league that just work in the mid-range like he does. And it's not even just scoring, facilitating. He's very good at just like, he's always like, I feel like wrapping around screens, getting to a spot on elbows or on wings. Mm-hmm. And then he's really able to create out of that. Yeah. The mid-range is his spot, which you don't see a lot. And it's really, really satisfying to watch.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he's a hyper efficient 3-point shooter. So the 3-point shooting is still there and he can work on and off ball, which is just perfect. You look to hit for him to continue to develop. And then when you can get the bona fide number 1 option, he's the perfect number 2 option if he can continue to develop. He could be a better version of I say it all the time because Chris Middleton is my guy, but he could be a better version of Chris Middleton. He could be a more athletic, better on defense. But he can still have that shot creation and hyper efficiency. So
with Brooklyn last year, Mikal Bridges averaged 26 points per game, 3 assists, 5 rebounds, 1 steal, half a block off 47, 37, 89% from the field, 3-point and free throw, respectively. Yeah, Mikal Bridges was just great when he got to Brooklyn. The Nets record wasn't that great when they traded Kyrie and Kevin Durant, obviously, because you're going to get worse when you trade those guys. But he held them above water enough to get in the playoffs and played pretty well in the playoffs, even though they got swept. The Sixers had to send double teams to Mikal Bridges pretty much every single time he touched the ball in those games because they knew that Mikal Bridges, if he got 1-on-1 looks going to the mid-range or getting to his spots in the 3-point or slashing down to the rack, he was going to give that team some serious work. And therefore, Philly were just like, you know what, we're going to start double teaming him every single time he gets the ball and is on the move. That being said, why it works so well and what's obviously going to hold Mikal Bridges back from being ever as good as a Bradley Beal or any of the guys above him is the playmaking. Mikal Bridges, he does seriously lack in the playmaking department. And I think until we see some major growth in that area, he's gonna be held back. Once he figures out how to really leverage that great scoring into playmaking and setting up his teammates, I think it's going to open up the Nets team a lot and his personal play a lot. But kind of like what you guys said is they are still looking for that number 1 main ball handler all the time. So when they do find that guy, Mikal Bridges as a playmaker is not going to be as much of a necessity as it was last year and right now because Spencer Dinwiddie is not that. Let's be honest. No disrespect to Spencer Dinwiddie, but we got to be honest.
He can't throw a lob.
Yeah.
No, he can't at all. So Mikal Bridges. I feel like everyone just loves Mikal Bridges because it's a great story. Super likable dude. Every single time you watch an interview of his personality is just
he's always
super charismatic.
Super smiley, super good energy all the time. So I just wanted to highlight his stats after the trade. So 27 games, he averaged 26 points per game, a steal, 2.7 assists. Like you said, that's where the really jump is. 4.5 rebounds. And he shot, 47% from the field and 37% from 3.
Of high volume too.
6.5 attempts from 3 and 18 total field goals.
I do think the playmaking may take a bigger jump than you guys expect next year because what's crazy is that he was this great in a position where he was not used to or comfortable with at any time in his career, even in college or even in high school. You talked about the Paul George podcast. There's a clip of him talking about it. He's like, I couldn't break 30 until the NBA. He didn't break 30 until Brooklyn Nets, I don't think, or even in the NBA. Like he's not someone that's ever been a volume scorer, really been a lead guy. He's always been a role playing archetype on the floor. So now he's in a whole new world, and I actually think he's a high IQ player. I think he'll make it work, and I think you'll see the assist numbers jump up. Nothing crazy, but you'll see.
I think playmaking wise, you're really looking for him to take a jump in the ability just to be more comfortable. Like when you watch him, you can see that he can see what needs to be done. Like he knows where he should be making the pass. He knows where his guys should be going, but he struggles with the actual creation of the pass, which is something that I kind of recognized from like Giannis in like 2018 to 2021. Like he understood it, but he didn't have the comfortability to actually make the pass or understand where to place his footwork, which is something that Mikal can grow into. So as he expands that playmaking role, and I think Jacques Vaughn is a pretty good coach, and I think he can develop that offensive system, and they should be a fun team. There should be a lot of ball movement, and they're going to be really gritty defensively. Like that's like a sneaky team to be like, wow, they were top 3 to 5 in defense. Like that defensive lineup is going to be
especially with
nasty.
Claxton anchoring that.
Man.
Oh yeah,
shout out Claxton. He's a dog, man.
We're
I think they're a
team that might get Stan podcast.
Add it to the list.
Add it to the list.
I think actually they're a team that might get carried by their defense a little bit in the regular season. Where again, we might see them at like a 6 or a 7 seed and be like, why are they a 6 seed? But it's like just no one scored on them.
Yeah, literally. I think that team's defense is going to be crazy. I don't know what their full lineup is going to be because it was so changed last year. But they could roll out lineups of Spencer Dinwiddie, Mikal, Royce O'Neal, Cam Johnson, and Claxton. And like literally switch. Everybody can switch. Everyone can guard the ice.
And depending on how Ben Simmons is looking, maybe they even try.
I keep forgetting that Ben Simmons is there.
So do I, because it's been so long since we've seen him like fully healthy and back to his
playing real basketball.
I saw a report today that says, which we get this report the last 2 off seasons, but apparently his rehab on his back. So apparently last off season there were still some setbacks with his back surgery, but this off season it seems. Sure. I guess this off season that they've tried a new rehab method, and it seems like his back is better than it was at the beginning of last year. So if that's true, this team is going to be very, very good. If he is even 75% of what he was in Philly, like this team will be good. Like,
I mean, the playmaking wouldn't be an issue if he
playmaking would not be an issue. Your rim pressure would not be an issue. It would be awesome. That'd be a very, very good team, and I'm hoping for it. I'm rooting for him. I think it'd be awesome. That if that happened. So, yeah. I also want to note about Mikal. He is classified as a shooting guard because of the trade. He changed positions after the trade was made. Plus he had qualifying minutes at shooting guard before that. So he is listed as a small forward traditionally for the rest of his career, but at the beginning of the year, he was listed as a shooting guard / small forward. And then with the trade, he switched full time. All right. Well, let's get into number 6 then. I had Bradley Beal at number 6.
So
I had Bradley Beal as well.
Okay.
Not much to say about Bradley Beal. Everyone knows who Bradley Beal is at this point. Very good scorer, underrated playmaker, an okay defender, not the best, but he can, if he really has to, he can kind of body up. He's got a bigger body build. And then, last year he had some up and downs with injuries, and obviously the team wasn't that great, and some of the times his efficiency was dropping, but his playmaking level is still a very, very good last year. So I don't know if you guys really have anything.
That was the big thing for me is that, especially looking at the list of names I put above Bradley Beal at the 5 spot, it was the amount of games played. He only played about 50 games.
Yeah.
I felt like the consistency was very, just like you said, it just really wasn't there. So I know that Bradley Beal at its peak, 6, it might be a little disrespectful, but I don't think we've seen him at his full.
Not for the last 2 years. For the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And I think it'll be better next year. He'll have a reason to play through injury, and he'll be playing with a lot better pieces around him, obviously.
Yeah.
So he'll be winning more. So I wouldn't be surprised if he moves up this list. But the injuries, and obviously he probably got shut down for tanking towards the last couple months of the season. Affected that. So, but
it's a lot easier to play basketball when you're winning. Like,
yes,
for sure.
You actually want to show up and play when you're winning.
Yeah,
it's also a lot easier for him. Sorry, but it's a lot easier for him too when he gets to be the third option on the offense rather than the number 1. Right? He doesn't have as much defensive attention, and I think he'll be starting at point guard for the Suns next year. So a lot of that playmaking is going to be on high display for that team next year.
Yeah. All right. I am looking forward to that Suns, watching him with the Suns. I'm curious how that's going to be.
Very curious to see how that point guard works.
It's 3 dudes that all shoot in the mid-range, which will be interesting. And then I'm excited to see Beal as a point guard, if that's really the route that they decide to go after camp. All right. Well, then number 5, I have Zach LaVine at number 5.
I have Zach LaVine
as well. Yep.
I feel like our list is going to be pretty. I feel like it's going to be exactly the same after this one.
Unison down. Yeah.
Yeah. Zach LaVine is awesome. He is also, like, when we were talking about like some of the other guys on this list, like DeJounte or Anthony, like, people really underestimate how good Zach LaVine is. Like,
for sure.
Like, post All-Star break, he was averaging like over 27 points per game on very high usage, a lot of attempts, very good efficiency. The playmaking is very underrated. And when he really puts his head down, he's a good defender as well. So, yeah. And I think he doesn't really get the props he deserves as one of the league's premier offensive players at all.
No, I agree. He creates so many open looks for the Bulls. He just doesn't get the benefit of them capitalizing on it.
Yeah,
I think he's a leader in potential assists, or like in terms of like potential assists versus actual converted assists. Yeah. He's up there in the differential.
Yeah, and also, like, it doesn't help either that this team is not a very good 3-point shooting team, and his greatest playmaking aspect is his like footwork to get to the rim from the perimeter, because he's such a shot creation threat as a 3-point and mid-range shooter. Like, and then his slashing ability is obviously great, even post ACL injury a few years ago.
Yeah.
Like,
still a crazy athlete.
When he's kicking it out, it's not, they're not just catch and shoot opportunities. He did have Patrick Williams last year, he was a top 15, I think, ish catch and shoot player last year. So he did have him. But other than that, there's not really any catch and shoot guys on the roster. There's more next year. So it should be exciting.
Yeah, Zach LaVine, just so good. And again, I think, like, for a long time, Zach LaVine was like super underrated, and then he became properly rated because everyone found out how good he was. And now we're kind of like reverted back to him being underrated again, which is bizarre. Like, you ask any Bulls fan who was the best player on the team last year, they're not going to say DeMar DeRozan. They're going to say Zach LaVine.
Not even close.
It was Zach LaVine most of last year. Zach LaVine, his efficiency has dropped a tiny bit from the year before and the year before that, but his efficiency at that volume is still like A+ as far as it's super impressive. Around the league. And again, him playing for the Bulls doesn't do him any favors at all. It'd be hard for every player to play on the Bulls and kind of break through. But
I think
Zach LaVine's great.
I think LaVine is one of those guys. He's similar to Anthony, and honestly, at this point, Tyler Hero, where he wasn't a good defender at one point in his career. And I'm not saying that man is like coming out and he's a lockdown, but he's not some bum on the defensive end. He's not. It's actually DeRozan that was a terrible defender on the roster that many are somehow labeling the better defender out of those two.
Yeah.
And I feel like Zach's just kind of getting the blame for a notion that's 5 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's what happens with so many players is they just get labeled as bad defenders, and then they're never able to shake that for as long as they play. Yeah, it's rough.
Well, because it's hard because they just get scored on. Sorry. Even if you're a good defender, you get scored on, and people just see that and they assume.
My goodness. Sorry, I just had a scare. I just got a notification on my phone that said the Los Angeles Angels are finalizing a trade, and I thought they traded Shohei. So sorry, I got distracted there for a second.
Man.
I was like, I got scared.
We would have had to go into
a baseball talk for 2 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree. And also the slight variability in efficiency at that high volume, like you said, is pretty normal, Mattias. So like I completely agree. Like it's still elite to be that efficient on that volume, even if there's slight variability from year to year, because it's not like you're going to stay if you're at the same shooting numbers every single year. So,
no.
I think it's going to be interesting. I was thinking about this the other day. Yesterday, I was thinking of some teams that are possibly going to be moving some of their star players, and the Bulls might be one of them within the next year. And it would be interesting to see who would all get moved and for what. And if Zach LaVine were to get traded, like if he got traded to, my dream would be for him to be on the Milwaukee Bucks at the beginning of next season.
Yeah.
I would love that. It would be awesome. If he were to get traded to a team like that, I think it would be very interesting how fast everyone would switch up on how he's viewed as a player, as a defender, as a scorer. So,
yeah. I'm very curious to see if that were to actually happen, if people would credit Giannis or Drew for like making him a good defender or something along those lines.
They would.
They would. And it's just like,
yeah.
Yeah, they would. All right, well, let's get into number 4 then. I had Kyrie Irving at number 4.
I had Kyrie Irving.
I had Anthony Edwards.
Yeah, I get it. I'm not mad. I get it.
We can talk about Kyrie though if you guys want.
Yeah, let's talk about Kyrie first. Yeah.
I'm guessing he was your number 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Kyrie Irving in a vacuum. Let's be honest. In a vacuum, Kyrie Irving could be number 1 on this list.
100%.
He's that good. He's that skilled with the basketball. He's just Kyrie Irving is. I know it gets talked about and it's a bit redundant, but as far as one of the most talented players to ever play the game, Kyrie Irving is up there in that conversation. But we got to be real. He never plays. Kyrie Irving just never plays, and that's always what's going to hold him back in these rankings is the fact that for one reason or another, he is never available.
Yeah. I agree. He has had so many injury issues over the last few years. And last season with the whole, was it last season or 2 seasons ago, he played like one of his most productive seasons due to non-injury. And it was because he had to sit out a lot of games due to the vaccine mandate, which I think that was in 2021 or the 2021 to 2022 season. And like that, the injury issues keep popping up, but from a pure like basketball on the court standpoint, like when he is on the court, there is very few players that are better than him from a shot making standpoint and a creation standpoint. And next year with him playing with a player like Luka for the full season and them having more defense and shooting around them, I really think we're in for a very, very special Kyrie season.
I agree.
Because he can just do his thing and he doesn't have to take on a huge, huge offensive load.
No, he doesn't even have to like really stress. He just kind of has to get buckets.
Yeah, and they're going to be a fun team. And if their defense goes, where it to its potential or even close to it, I think they'd be very close to a contending level team. Honestly,
Yeah.
But you really look for the center development with the Mavericks.
Yeah, with Kyrie, the big reason I have him over Anthony Edwards is just because in a way they're almost kind of opposite players, where Anthony Edwards will just play through an injury. Like he's hindered by the fact that sometimes he might not be the most skilled in the mid range, or he might not get the most opener at, like, you know what I mean? He's not the greatest ISO player, but he just gets a bucket. He figures it out. He'll play. He'll fight through contact. He'll figure it out. Kyrie, on the other hand, like you guys talked about, we don't know if he's going to play. But I think there is a skill gap and a production gap that I think Anthony Edwards will close probably next season, in the next season or two, but I'm just not quite there yet. I want to wait until I see a little playmaking and maybe more consistent on-ball creation from Anthony Edwards. Not that he's can't create for himself. It's just I want to see him take a step into the elite.
No, I completely get it. As one of the biggest Anthony Edwards fans on the planet, the playmaking is something that we're going to get to when we talk about him a little bit more. But with Kyrie Irving, even if it's not injury with him, it's always something, some extracurricular nonsense, or him being like, yeah, this ain't it. I want to be on a new team. It just feels like he's just everything about Kyrie Irving has been hammered to death at this point, right? So, but he's just nowhere near reliable at this point, and that's forever going to sour his value.
I will say, so far so good in Dallas. All the PR has been good, so
so far so good.
I doubt it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that can be overblown by the media. There was obviously the big issue last year, which I really don't want to talk about because it's not worth talking about. But I think a lot of it can be pushed by media figures that don't like how Kyrie handles his media engagement with them. And you see that across all sports. Unfortunately, with sports media is players that are not gotten along with the media a lot of the time, or have instances with the media where they're negative. They seem to get treated a lot different. And, but similar, kind of like how Russ was for the last few years, he was very abrasive towards media because of how they handled, his situation. And it seems like a lot of the narratives and stories that were pushed out were negative as well.
Yeah.
So then for number 3, I had Anthony Edwards.
Anthony Edwards. Yep.
I'm gonna simplify this. I'm gonna look right at the camera and I'm gonna simplify this. He's a dog. That's all it is. He is a dog. He's just ultra competitive, tough shot maker, can get hot quick, and it's a bad night for you if he's if the shot's falling.
And he just seems like he's built for the moment. Like playoffs this year, amazing. He was the Nuggets' toughest guard. The Timberwolves
Bruce Brown said so.
Series. Yeah.
Bruce Brown said Anthony Edwards gave us more trouble than anyone else did.
It's true.
And that is a huge thing. And what do you average? Like 32?
32 points per game.
And I'm saying it right now. If the Wolves would have beat the Lakers, they would have probably they had a chance to go to the Western Conference Finals if they beat the Lakers. And it's literally sorry, Jaden McDaniels and all of you, but punching the wall and getting in a fight in the locker room and stuff, you cost your team.
Don't remind me. Remind me.
You cost your team a potential deep playoff run.
You do that in November, maybe. You don't ever do that, but if there's ever a time to do that, you do that in November.
Yes.
You don't do it in a play-in game.
I'll let you. Let's let Ryan push his prop for Anthony Edwards, and then before we move on.
Minnesota Timberwolves. What a team. Yeah, I know it's going to sound crazy, but Anthony Edwards, the cloth that he's cut from is up there with some of the greatest players of all time. Like, I don't want to say Michael Jordan, but wink, wink. I'm just gonna get out. I need to get out there just because I have agendas to push, and that's one of them. But Anthony Edwards, what he showed this season was just phenomenal. It's very common for players who are on the path to stardom to take a great leap in their third season. We see it all the time, but Anthony Edwards, he exceeded my expectations this season, and I expected a lot from him. When Karl-Anthony Towns went down early in the season in November, the only way the Minnesota Timberwolves were going to be able to stay afloat was if Anthony Edwards ascended to legit stardom. Not how he was before, where you could see the flashes, but it wasn't all together. No, Anthony Edwards was really going to have to put it all together for a long stretch of games because that Cat injury was bad. Cat missed 52 games last season.
Yeah.
That's a lot
of one injury, too. Like, it wasn't split up.
Yeah, one injury. That's a lot of basketball missed, and Anthony Edwards took the reins of that team and then some. What impressed me most about Anthony Edwards last season was not even just the improved scoring, because we always knew that was in the cards for him. But when he's engaged as an on-ball defender, he can guard anybody on the perimeter in this entire league. There's that one clip of him and McDaniels locking down Luka and Kyrie for that last possession of the game. Have you guys seen that clip?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's insane. Like when Ant is locked in, he is locked in. He's got the size, he's got the athleticism, the speed, he can do it all. Also, he plays games. He does not miss games. One thing that Kyrie Irving, like we said, will do is miss games. Anthony Edwards is the opposite of that. Anthony Edwards played 79 games last season. 79. There were games last season where Anthony Edwards got hurt in the first half, saw his team was down, and got back in the game on a bad leg because he wanted to be out there. And
he left the game like screaming in pain because of his ankle injury, and he like came back like 2 games later.
Yeah. I mean, that's as a Blazer fan, that's things I've seen Dame do, and the fact that we're comparing a third-year player to something Dame does is actually it's a huge compliment. And I think one thing it's good to scope out with Anthony Edwards is look at other players in his draft class and their development. Even LaMelo Ball, who won Rookie of the Year over him, correct?
Yes.
Yes, he did.
You have to look at the development difference and just how Anthony Edwards has completely separated himself from almost a majority of people's third years, just in in general.
And also that development was not given to him. They
did not want to give him the touches.
He went out there and he said, I don't care. I'm taking the ball and I'm gonna hoop. Like, Karl-Anthony Towns was very, very at the forefront of the Wolves' plan as the number one option of the future. And Anthony Edwards said, I don't care. I'm doing my thing. We're gonna go.
I can't remember exactly, but Ryan, wasn't it an issue in kind of the beginning of the year where Anthony Edwards wasn't super locked in? And was that was at the very beginning of the year, right? And do you think part of that might have been the role thing and a little bit of the clash?
So what I'd attribute to that last year was, it's true. Before Cat went down and Ant was playing beside him, Anthony Edwards didn't play that great. First of all, he came into the season a little bit out of shape to start off with. I think that definitely hindered a lot of his athleticism and quickness, and also, it was definitely pretty apparent that there were some immediate fit issues with the team last year. Trying to incorporate Rudy Gobert into the team with Cat, with Anthony Edwards, with D'Angelo Russell, who also posed a lot of problems. I don't think he helped anyone on the team really. As far as on the court, but again, once Cat went down, Anthony Edwards really, really stepped up, and also Anthony Edwards as a leader, as a voice in the locker room. He's already the leader of that team, and he's 21 years old. You watch his post game press conferences. He will never pass up the opportunity to praise one of his teammates when he gets the opportunity to. And that's ultimately why I say Anthony Edwards is cut from the same cloth as guys like Kobe Bryant, Michael Jordan, even though obviously it's a stretch because the likelihood of him reaching those heights are just they're so far. But I think there's a bit of truth to that. And
No, I agree, and I'm from an outside perspective. I honestly think even though has a young career, he's one of the better leaders in the NBA right now. I'll say that right now. He's one of the few NBA players that's not afraid to take accountability.
No.
And you see a lot of these talented guys actually have some fragileness around accountability, or like when they get critiqued by the media, which is like fair. I get not wanting to hear a non-basketball player talk about basketball.
Yep.
But Anthony Edwards will just take it and be like, yeah, I was bad tonight. Or like, yeah, I agree. You don't see that.
He's
ever.
he accepts it all. I mean, the coach, Chris Finch, he's admitted multiple times that he coaches Anthony Edwards harder than anybody else on the team. And Ant takes it super well. And
he reminds me of how Giannis was when he was starting to rise up. Like in 2015, 2016, 2017-ish, like 2016 to 2017 to 18 Giannis, where it was the rise to all-star dumb, and he was very vocal, and he became very vocal, and he became very prominent. And especially with that team, like I think it was a very similar thing where it was like we had Jabari on the team as well before he had all the injuries, and it was like the franchise wanted to go with him, but Giannis was like, no, I'm going to be that guy. And so I think Ant has every mental and physical ability to become number one on this list, and like a top, like he has the ability and mentality to be like the best player in the NBA. Like there could be a year where he is like the best player in the NBA, or when like he is going to be an MVP guy for a long time. So.
Yeah, and on top of all this too, Anthony Edwards is a playoff riser. He gets better in the playoffs. We've seen it 2 straight years where he gave Memphis the work, he gave Denver the work. It's I could go on about him all day, but before we wrap it up with him, Anthony Edwards does have some negatives to his game. Obviously, he's still a young player. He suffers from a lot of the young player tendencies. He's not always super engaged off the ball defensively. The Timberwolves were 5-10 against the worst 5 teams in the NBA last year, and a lot of that was because I think that Anthony Edwards has a lot. He doesn't have a lot because he's super mature, super professional guy, but I do think he has some maturing left to go.
Especially with some of the off the court stuff.
With some of the off the court stuff, and then I mean, really, there was only that one incident, but
which was a big incident.
Big incident. It happens, and also, I mean, you've got to win against the bad teams. You've got to remain engaged off ball defensively, and also, I think the next step for him is going to be a playmaking step. We saw last year, even after like 65, 70 games, he never really developed that good of a chemistry with Rudy Gobert off the pick and roll. It was a hope that Rudy Gobert's screen setting and his rolling into the basket would open up a lot for Anthony Edwards' game. And I think the screen setting definitely did help him get open. But Anthony Edwards, he can't throw lobs. And if you
he's not comfortable playmaking.
No, not at all. And if you want to be a good team on a team with Rudy Gobert, he's got to learn how to figure out how to play with Rudy Gobert in the pick and roll, how to get guys open, how to facilitate a little bit more, and how to get guys open. I think that's the next step for him.
Yeah. I'd say the last quick thing about that is I think next year you'll really see if that development is going to come, because they're going to have the full season all together. They'll be more comfortable with the lineup. They understand both the bench and starting pieces and how what roles that they can strive in. So, number 2, I had Donovan Mitchell. We talked about him a lot earlier, so we really don't need to go too much into depth.
Yeah.
Great player, high volume scorer. He had the 70-point game this season, which was cool.
Just ridiculous,
which was an awesome game.
I do want to say Donovan Mitchell his playmaking. I want to talk about his playmaking because it's both underrated and overrated at the same time. And the fact that when he decides to play make and he gets out of his own little like zone,
tunnel vision,
he's a very, very good passer. Very good passer. It's just he doesn't. I don't know if he struggles reading the floor consistently or if he's not willing to pass consistently, because sometimes you see these games where he looks like he can take this step to be a really good playmaker, and then you just see in the next game and he just shooting everything. And you saw that in the playoffs as well.
Yeah.
He had his real issue is the tunnel vision.
Yeah, I think that's a residual effect from Utah a little bit, because in Utah we also kind of saw the same thing, and a lot of the times it was true where Donovan Mitchell was kind of the only guy that could score out there for long
Yeah, so he
stretches, and it
had
was
to.
so he had to take the tough shots and go get to the rim all by himself, and take a ton of off the dribble threes. But with Cleveland, especially in the playoffs, kind of like you said, he has to realize that he's also playing with Darius Garland, who can do all the same stuff he can do. He's got to realize that he has to play a big part in Evan Mobley's development, whether he likes it or not. Kind of like how we mentioned earlier, Evan Mobley, his offensive leap it depends on a lot of the rest of the team also willing to kind of let that happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Mitchell's hard because he could make his life a lot easier, like you said, letting Garland take the reins. And I think that's something he needs to do, because it's weird. Garland he's a good passer. The ball will come back around to Mitchell if he lets it, and he'll get more open catch and shoot looks. And he's a good shooter. I don't know why he's reluctant to give some of the ball handling to other players. I don't get it.
Yeah, he gets tunnel vision a lot, and it can kind of get overshadowed because he is so good. Like, his tunnel vision can produce so much of offense that it's kind of scary how good he can get when he's in his zone. But it also it can limit the players around him sometimes and create inconsistencies in late game offense. So I think that's really where his game lacks. And I think it's been long enough now where we kind of know what he is, but I think it's just he needs to change some of his tendencies when it comes to that. Like, he doesn't need to develop better playmaking skills, as some may say. He just needs to develop better tendencies with handling the ball and working with his teammates, which can just come over time. And I think he did it when he first came into the league, and then he kind of became the guy, so he kind of stopped for a while. But like, I think if he can kind of get back to being willing to work more off ball as a movement shooter and as a slasher, I think it can open up a lot.
Agreed. And I do want to say, like, we've opened up the Donovan Mitchell with a little bit of negative, but I mean, he's a great player. It's really hard to talk about him because we all know who Donovan Mitchell is at this point. Like, an average NBA fan knows that he's a top 2 shooting guard in the league, and they know all of his strengths. So,
for sure. Yeah. Awesome. And we also talked about him a lot earlier, so there's not much for us to say. And then the last guy, unanimous, is Devin Booker.
Yep.
Really, there's not really anything to say that anyone doesn't know at this point.
I don't think there's an argument. I will say this, I think Devin Booker is one of the more underrated players on this list, and I have him number 1. That's like how I feel about Devin Booker.
Yeah. He's so good.
People do not understand how good he is. Like, a lot of the time, like, I urge anyone that would disagree that Devin Booker is a clear-cut number 1 on this list, go and look up his percentages and his scoring numbers from the playoffs this year and tell me that he is not the best shooting guard in the NBA by far. Like, 70% true shooting as a primary ball handler and perimeter shooter. Like,
crazy.
That's like unheard of.
Yeah, and
that's higher efficiency than like Jokic.
Yeah, which is stupid. Because Booker's also taking these fadeaways and these pull-ups that are like contested.
Yeah, it's nuts.
Yeah. But I think. Oh, go ahead, Ryan.
I was gonna say, when it, like, with the pull-ups, when Devin Booker gets in that mid-range area, there's just nothing you can do to stop him. The balance at which he shoots from, and the way he gets to his spots, it's just, and the precision at which he shoots to rival some of the best mid-range shooters of all time. He's already in that conversation. I pulled up his shot chart from the playoffs, and it's like,
here,
let me see it. It's not going to focus, but
it's all green. I know what it looks like.
There
you
You
go.
can see it from the side.
All green.
All green. That's insane. I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, I saw it. It's nuts. It's like Steph Curry level efficiency as a jump shooter. I want to say this. There's only one man in the entire NBA that can stop him, and that his name is Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday gets in front of Devin Booker, and
he does.
He does not know what to do.
That's very true.
He cannot be. He cannot beat him. He cannot figure that out. So,
I see a lot of. I want to add one more thing on Booker though. We've seen a lot of Suns hate over these last 3 years as they've gotten good. And a lot of it is targeted at Booker, rightfully so, because he's their best player. And I get the annoyance of how whiny Devin Booker and Chris Paul have been. But he's been the player to show up every year. Like, he's the one having to try to cash in all these checks when CP3 or DeAndre Ayton decide to not show up. Like, if you track all of the playoffs and all these bad games, like, Booker really has not been a bad playoff performer ever.
Look at that 2021 finals. Giannis and Devin Booker we're just going back and forth for 6 games straight. And then there was that Chris Middleton game thrown in there where he had 40. But, like,
dude, I could talk about that finals forever. That's one of the greatest.
It's the most underrated finals of all time, man. I'm telling you.
I've never had more fun watching a finals than that.
Oh, trust me. Me neither. I was there the day we won in the city. I have a picture. I climbed on top of the sign. We have a big orange sign outside of our stadium, outside of the arena. And I climbed on top of it with like 30 other people, and we were all just up there. Like, people were up on like street poles. It was nuts.
I remember I was in San Francisco for Game 6 or whatever on the Steel, right?
Yeah, that's 5. Game 5.
Oh, it was Game 5. So it was Game 5 is when I was there, and there were Suns fans at the other at the table next to me at dinner.
Yeah,
and I was just going at it with them. And then when the Steal happened, I was belligerent. I remember I was just
yeah.
There are so many iconic moments from that series that I vividly remember. Like Giannis's recovery block on Ayton.
Oh, so nasty.
Drew picking the pocket of Booker and the lob to Giannis, and then obviously
that lob was crazy. By the way, it's crazy to throw that lob.
The 7 or 8 fouls Devin Booker got.
Yeah, and
Giannis's injury recovery in general.
Yeah. People seem to forget that his knee bent backwards like a week and a half before the finals started. Like,
it's an overused word, but the aura of that finals was crazy.
PJ Tucker smiling at Devin Booker at the end of the game. And obviously Giannis's 50-point closeout was nuts.
Amazing.
So, but that's all about I got to say about Devin Booker. Not much to say. He's awesome. All right. Well, we can quickly run through each of our lists one last time. Our honorable mentions seem to be kind of unanimously Tyrese Maxey, Derek White, and Tyler Hero were the 3 guys that were either 10 or honorable mentions. Ryan, you can hit it up first. We'll let you get your 10 off, and then.
Yeah, why not? Let's 10 I have Anthony Simons, 9 I have DeJounte Murray, 8 I have Desmond Bane, 7 I have Mikal Bridges, 6 I have Bradley Beal, 5 I have Zach LaVine, 4 I have Kyrie Irving, 3 I have Anthony Edwards, 2 I have Donovan Mitchell, and 1 I have Devin Booker.
All right, TS, you can go.
At 10 I had Anthony Simons. At 9 I had Desmond Bane. At 8, I had DeJounte Murray. At 7, I had Mikal Bridges. At 6, I had Bradley Beal. 5, Zach LaVine. 4, Anthony Edwards. 3, Kyrie Irving. 2, Donovan Mitchell. And then 1, I had Book. And I want to add a hot take. Anthony Simons is going to be 7 by the time we do this list next year. I'm telling you right now.
Probably. I could get behind
I'm going to tell you right now, he's going to be better than everyone in front of him on my list. He'll be better than all of these guys.
I'm here for the agenda. So for my list, I had number 10, I have Tyler Hero. Number 9, I have Anthony Simons. 8, DeJounte Murray. 7, Mikal Bridges. 6, Bradley Beal. 5, Zach LaVine. 4 is Kyrie Irving. 3 is Anthony Edwards. And number 2 is Donovan Mitchell. And number 1 is Devin Booker. All right. Well, that is our wrapping up the episode. We got a long one today. Lots of good discussion. Appreciate anyone that's tuned in, made it to the end of the video. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, check out all of our socials down below, and be on the lookout for full podcasts coming weekly. We may be switching to bi-weekly within the next couple of weeks, depending on scheduling. And keep your eye out for any extra clips or YouTube videos that we're going to be putting out over the next couple of weeks. And appreciate anyone for watching, and peace out.
Yeah, thank you.
Peace.